we'll go ahead and get started with the review of the action items that will be addressed next Tuesday evening on August 2nd, and already in the month of August next week at 6 p.m. Director Garcia is joining us via Zoom. Welcome. And so we'll call upon Deputy City Manager Lance Spitzer.
That's a blast from the past.
Yeah.
There you go.
I've been calling that on.
Wow.
And Lance Spitzer will review those action items.
Yes, sir. Before you've got your agenda, as part of it, recognition of guests, we have Mr. Gary Troutman with President and CEO of the Hot Springs Chamber of Commerce and Hot Springs Metro Partnership. He will deliver the July Economic Development Report. He'll be doing that at the meeting, just for clarification. So with that, we have no consent agenda items. We will move into old business, which is ordinance 02226. This is an ordinance amending ordinance number 6410, regulating short-term residential rental businesses within the city of Hot Springs, Arkansas, declaring an emergency and for other purposes. And I believe our city attorney, Mr. Brian Albright, will handle.
Thank you, Lance. As Lance indicated, and the board is aware, you all have been dealing with the short-term residential rentals for a good little while now. Ordinance 6405 was adopted December 7th of 2021, and it was amended shortly thereafter in January to just deal with horizontal property regimes and special and planned developments. Later in the year, May 31st of 2020, the board conducted a work session in which you discussed some of the impacts of this regulation that we've been embarked upon, and discussion ensued that would reduce the number of licenses within residentially zoned areas from 500 per calendar year to 400 per calendar year. And so 02226 was brought to you at your regularly scheduled board meeting on I guess that was January the 5th. And no, it was before then. When was that? In any event, the ordinance that was brought to you was just to deal with those two things, reducing the number of licenses in residentially zoned areas from 500 to 400, and in doing so, having a cutoff on SUP applications of November 1 of this year, so that at the end of the year we would know how many licenses were truly there. At that meeting, that proposed ordinance was tabled along with a discussion about an alternative ordinance for your consideration. And so this is coming back to you for what was on the table. Bear in mind that what you tabled from the floor is the ordinance that only does two things: reduces it from 500 to 400 and has a cutoff of November 1, 2022 for SUP applications. The alternative ordinance that is in your packet and was in your previous packet that obviously you can discuss, but it is not on the floor, would also change the appeal process from BZA to the, from BZA to the board before it went to the court, and there would be no fee associated with an appeal regarding a decision on an SUP. If the board is inclined to deal with those two issues, the ordinance that has been tabled would have to be amended in order to accomplish that. I know it's kind of a procedural pile of coat hangers, but that is what would be required. So the reason that it still would go through BZA is because that is the statutory scheme that the state of Arkansas has put in place in Arkansas Code Annotated Section 1456-416, that administrative decisions from a hearing officer go to BZA first. After that, it goes to court unless the board of directors adopts an ordinance stating that they want to hear that appeal first. That is part and parcel of what this alternative ordinance would allow you to be able to do. Be happy to answer any questions about that or the process that you'll be going through next Tuesday, but that is it in a nutshell.
Any questions of Mr. Albright? Yeah, I have one question. As it relates to, a party not being happy with the decision of the board and they can take it to court. But
Yes.
we're kind of always thinking about the neighborhood, who is the person appealing
Yes.
decisions. But the applicant could as well take it to court.
Absolutely, absolutely, yes. Any action by the board could be taken to court as an appeal of your determination. I would point out, just quickly, I know we'll talk about it next Tuesday night, but if such an appeal from an SUP should come to the board, I want the board to be aware that that is a quasi-judicial action. And so it really does impact your ability to have discussions, even on the front end, with constituents or friends, neighbors, individuals that you may come in contact with about SUPs. Not necessarily the STR itself, but certainly the SUP. If that ultimately comes to you, it is a quasi-judicial determination, just like it is for the BZA.
Everybody clear on that? Very good.
So
Our
do
next-
we amend
Oh.
it that night? Or do we amend it?
So what will come off the table with a motion to second to adopt is the original 22-26, which is to lower it from 500 to 400 and have a cutoff on November 1. If you want to do anything else with that, that would require a motion to amend, a second, and an affirmative vote to do so. Sir?
Will the amendment be in our packet?
It is, yes, sir.
It
You'll
already
see-
is?
There's 22-26 and there's 22-26A.
Okay, thank you.
But 22-26 is what is the
Right.
agenda item.
That's the old business.
Yes.
Okay, thank you,
Yes,
sir.
Okay.
All right, everybody clear?
Yeah.
Move on.
Need a scorecard for that one. Next up, we do have a public hearing on a request to abandon and close an undeveloped portion of Mountain Street located between Exchange Street and West Mountain Drive in Garland County, Arkansas. And Ms. Morrissey, did you want to present this one or wait till the actual item itself?
I can wait, just to give you a
Fair
little
enough.
overview. The petitioner is Hochatown Mining Company, doing business as Grateful Head Pizza and Beer Garden, and they did file a motion to vacate this undeveloped portion of Mountain Street. The National Park Service has expressed interest in joining that so that the whole right-of-way could be vacated from Exchange Street to West Mountain Drive. So this public hearing is a requirement under state law, and it has been noticed in the Sentinel Record.
Okay. Any questions on that particular item? That will be a public hearing. It's been noticed and advertised. Okay, next up, we move to your new business section, and that will be consider resolution R22-121, a resolution authorizing an agreement for parking management services with Walker Consultants Incorporated, amending the 2022 budget and for other purposes, and I will handle that one. This particular item comes to the board as a request to approve a contract for parking management services. The title in itself, as it was advertised for statements of qualifications, this is more particularly an entire process to really review and not so much study, but we're talking about implementation of a comprehensive pay parking system. The statement of qualifications that was advertised, we did receive back 3 respondents. And one of the things that we specifically looked for when we put out the statement of qualifications dealt with, we did not want to receive responses from entities that were in the parking infrastructure, parking meters, hardware, software, anything like that. We were really looking for someone to help us develop a pay parking system, but also to implement it. And when I talk about implementation, they will assist us in drafting a request for proposals to implement the meters, the software, citations, kind of everything that goes with it. The contract that will be in the board's packet, it's a 12-week scope of work. So pretty compact. It's got a fair bit of community input and outreach. So we've got some stakeholder group time built in, as well as 2 public input meetings for the public. And really, one of the things that we wanted to deal with on the parking side of things was to make sure that they had time to look at our supply and demand, as well as possibly looking at any efficiencies that can be gained. But one thing in particular was to expand our parking inventory. So there's a lot within the actual scope of work. I'm kind of hitting some of the highlights. It's a phased program. All told, as I said, 12-week completion date. The contract agreement is with Walker Consulting Engineers. They are pretty well known from a parking standpoint when it comes to planning and implementation. They've done work with the Little Rock Airport, done a lot in towns similar to Hot Springs, Hilton Head, South Carolina, Bozeman, Montana, Boulder, Colorado, to name a few. They're also doing work there with the Walmart headquarters. They're big build out there. So obviously they're familiar with Arkansas. We've not contracted with this firm before, but obviously one of the things we wanted to make sure, Walker's a highly qualified firm, but to make sure that we do this, really no more study. We're talking about implementation of a paid parking system. And with that, I'll entertain any questions. One thing to note on the funding of it, the board will recall you restricted some funds in prior years to specifically for this parking implementation. That's the study and everything that goes with it. So the funding for this will come from that restricted fund. There was about $993,000 in that fund, so obviously sufficient funding. But really what we're looking at when we talk about the downtown, it's what you would think about with the downtown area. Our project area essentially is it expands beyond the CBIDs 1 and 2, kind of takes in some of that the courthouse area further down toward Farmers Market, Malvern, those particular areas. But there will be we'll kind of review that with the consultant to ensure that we have a good project area that is still something that we want to look at. We had to give some areas to look at when we started, but all told, I think Walker's a strong contractor, and we feel very comfortable with them.
Any questions of Lance, Director
Is this-
Holliday?
What's the amount of the contract?
$85,000.
Director Dobbs-Smith?
Is this the Walker Consultants from Kalamazoo, Michigan?
They've got about 26 offices across the
I looked them up.
US.
It looked like they've been in business since the mid-60s, and
Yeah.
they have quite a they do parking decks, parking lots, parking studies, they're like the parking people.
Yeah, they're very
Kalamazoo.
impressive. I'm sorry I didn't mention the amount. Yes, $85,000 is the contracted amount.
Any further questions of Lance? Thank
Yes,
you.
sir.
Oh, pardon? Oh, Director Garcia?
Yes, thank you, Mayor. Does this have a recommendation from the Parking Advisory Committee?
Yes, this was one of their main points to do was to issue a statement of qualifications to find a firm to assist us in the request for proposals for the actual paid parking program. So yes, this is one of the Parking Advisory Committee's recommendations that they presented to the board probably about 2 years ago, I believe.
Thank you.
Any further questions? Thank you.
Okay, next up we have Resolution R-22-122. This is a resolution declaring a certain structure located at 220 Potter Street a nuisance and approving emergency condemnation actions pursuant to Title 17 of the Hot Springs Code. We have Mike Scott, our Chief Building Official.
Thank you very much. 220 Potter Street, we started back in September of '21. We sent them a vacant structure letter telling them to either remove or repair the structure. At that point, they really didn't do anything. So it rolled on over around, and then in February and March, we started getting ready and preparing to take it to the board. We were going to bring it to the board in March. At that time, the owner expressed desire to tear it down themselves. So we backed off bringing it to the board. They immediately started tearing it down. Then they realized it was a much bigger job than they thought because they were trying to do it by hand. So they wound up with a big pile of broken lumber that they really couldn't use, it looks like. And then the structure, they had removed a lot of the load-bearing items. And so it sat there for a couple of months, and James Hardage with Neighborhood Services asked me to run by there and look at it. He was concerned about it. So I did go by there, and as you can see in the pictures, there's like 1 2x4 in the very front holding up a bunch of it. And so it was obviously in a state to where it was very dangerous for anyone to go inside. So at that point, I did an emergency tear down on it. We tore it down and removed and everything. And we made all the notifications prior to doing that, got notification out. They knew we were doing it. We didn't do anything without them knowing ahead of time. And so we tore it down, cleaned it up, and now it's already gone. And as you can see from the picture, it's cleaned up and all the debris is gone and everything else. So this is absolutely an after-the-fact demolition. So do we have any questions?
Questions of Mike? Thank you.
Yes, sir.
And next up is ordinance 02232. This is an ordinance vacating and the undeveloped portion of Mountain Street right-of-way located in Garland County, Arkansas, and for other purposes. And this was the item that the public hearing would be on. Ms. Morrissey.
Correct. Yes, so we kind of went over that before. I do want to note that the utility providers have been notified, and they all support the vacation. Staff as well has reviewed and has suggested 2 different conditions that this would be vacated with. So when you see this in the packet, you will notice these 2 conditions. The first one is that the portion of the right-of-way that is adjacent to the parcels owned by Hochatown, the requirement would be that the petitioner combine their 3 lots with the portion of the right-of-way that would become theirs if vacated by the end of the year. This helps clean up a few things that make sure that we don't have a landlocked lot, which we do right now, and it helps on some setback issues because their building is right up against, if not into the right-of-way currently. So that would help clear up those issues. And the second condition is the National Park Service has expressed their intent to join in on this petition and take the rest of that right-of-way that is surrounded by their land. But it must be conditioned on the acceptance of that land into the boundary system of the U.S. National Park. So as soon as we get that letter, that condition would be satisfied. So those will be noted in your packet. But other than that, the vacation is pretty straightforward and will be in your packet. Any questions?
Do they own the land to the north of it as well?
Hochatown owns the lot that Grateful Head Pizza is on and the lot to the north, as well as the lot on the other side. So that whole area would be combined into one parcel is what that condition is. And so the rest of the land north of that goes up to West Mountain Drive would become the National Park Services without our right-of-way on it.
Any other
Further questions?
I think Director Bob Smith.
No, I just said
Oh.
thank you.
Oh, very good.
I was just thinking about that electronics place that was up there, and wouldn't they abut that? Usually when there's one here and the easement is in between, you get half to one side and half to the other side.
Let me show this real quick to everybody.
Okay.
So there's a map right here that shows you these 3 lots are the ones that Hochatown currently owns. And
Okay.
so those would be combined with this portion of the right-of-way into one parcel right here.
I
And
gotcha.
then the National Park Service would have the northern part of this right-of-way right here. And so that would close essentially the whole thing that exists now from Exchange Street to West Mountain Drive.
That's what I was asking, if they own, see with the silver roof or the white roof or
This
whatever that
one?
is. I didn't know if he owned the land all the way to that, but apparently he does not.
Not this one, no
Ah,
ma'am.
gotcha.
No, just the 2, just the 2
Makes
that abut
sense.
that right away, yes. Ma'am.
Thank you.
Okay, next item is consider ordinance 02233. This is an ordinance amending the zoning map from C2 to C4 for property generally located at 1750 Albert Pike Road and for other purposes. And we have Planning and Development Director Kathy Selman.
Thank you. The applicant is Mr. Richard Larry Otwell, and he has an approximately 2.8 acre piece of land at 1750 Albert Pike Road. It's an unusually shaped piece, and it has frontage on 3 rights-of-way. But 115 feet of frontage on Albert Pike, 400 on Masters Place, and 200 on Vassar Alley. Surrounding land uses are to the north, Rector Heights Baptist and some undeveloped land. To the east, USA Car Wash and Master Tech. South is the highway itself, Quick Car Lube and Tune, One Refuge Indoor Bow Range, and the U.S. Postal Service. And to the west is Chapman Automotive and Rogers Cycle and Marine. Planning Commission advertised their meeting for July 14th. They called for testimony, and by their unanimous 9-0 vote, they are recommending that the board adopt an ordinance to amend the zoning map designating the subject property C4 Regional Commercial Open Display District. The planning commissioners found that the change demonstrates compatibility with surrounding development and zoning, and the change implements the future land use plan map as required by Hot Springs Code, Section 16 to 11E.
Any questions of Ms. Selman?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, next item is consider ordinance 02234, and this is an ordinance adopting the 2022 Hot Springs Plumbing and Fuel Gas Code, repealing certain ordinances and for other purposes. And again, we have Mike Scott, Chief Building Official.
Thank you very much. The Arkansas State Board of Health has already adopted this new code, the plumbing and the fuel gas code. We are wanting to adopt the most current edition that the state has adopted. As you see in the ones that are in the packet, there's a lot of red line stuff. It has not been deleted out of the code. The actual code that we are adopting is more comprehensive, and those sections are in the code, so therefore we don't need to copy them in our ordinance. That's why you see so much. And then we also have the increase in fees is based off of an average that I've done on some cities that have already adopted this new code, because it appears that everybody that's adopting this new code, because I'm getting emails just today wanting to know what our fees are. Everybody's doing their little survey, and while they're adopting the new code, they're all updating their fees. So the ones that I surveyed that I found that have already adopted this new code were Little Rock, North Little Rock, Bryant, and Texarkana. And as you can see from the fees that are in the packet, what I'm asking for is less than 3 of the 4 that I adopted, that I surveyed. So, but it is quite an increase from what we were before, because we haven't adopted new fees in that in almost 20 years. So things have changed. So.
Any questions of Mike?
Yes,
Director Garcia?
thank you. What do the fees go for?
Currently or new?
Well, I mean, what are the fees for when you say the?
Oh, it's for when they come in to pull a permit. It covers some of the cost of, pulling a permit. I have staff downstairs, vehicles, staff inspecting it. And so all that fee goes back into the general fund as revenue. All of my permit fees do.
And so this hasn't been updated in 20 years?
I think 18. 16 or 18 years, yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Any further questions?
Mayor, I'll just add that pursuant to state law, a copy of this will be available in the city clerk's office, and notice of its availability will be published in the paper before your meeting, so that individuals will have an opportunity to review before its passage.
Very good. Thank you. Thank you, Mike.
Okay, our final item on the agenda is ordinance 02235, an ordinance authorizing a contract for services with High Impact Movement Incorporated pursuant to ACA section 1458-104 and for other purposes. And I'll handle this one as well, Mayor. This particular item is a contract for services with High Impact Movement in the amount of $100,000. The board approved an agreement very similar to this one last year, and it does expire at the end of July. High Impact Movement is it's headed up by Mr. Amos Gray, who will also be in attendance to give his performance report of the past year's activities. So I do want to make that known. A few things about the contract: it does have some performance measures within it, and Mr. Gray will speak to those. Generally, we're talking about attendance, dealing with educational attainment grades, attendance, behavior, community service, and service to the community, really. HIM is an after-school and summer program, and really, when we're talking about the age groups, you're talking about all the way from children to young adults, so K through 11th grade. I think Amos has, I think he's had about almost 275, 300 kids within the program itself. I think his average daily attendance is about 100 students. They are housed there at the old Boys and Girls Club that is part of the Champion College field house now, but they do share space there. Of course, Amos and his group, they really are looking to provide a service to the community to bring a lot of these underserved students and young adults that are identified either by the school districts or their family. I don't believe Amos turns anyone away that does show up and wants to participate in the program, but as part of the contract, as we have it structured, of course, he will provide an audit of the organization within 4 months of their fiscal year close, which he will be providing that to us probably in, I think, October, if I'm not mistaken, for this coming past year. And then obviously, if approved, it will be in October of 2023 as well. The agreement runs from implementation date to July 31st of 2023. So, in particular, I think the program in itself, it does fill a need. There is really no program like it in the city. And of course, Mr. Gray will be here to present his performance report and activities. And I'd entertain any questions. Yes.
If I remember correctly, last year's contract was out of the PD's crime prevention. Is that correct? And if so, is that also this funding source?
A portion of the funding for this year, yes. That'll be $35,000 is out of that crime prevention. The remaining $65,000 will be part of the board's annual budget that will carry us into 2023. So there is kind of two pots of money. $35,000 of it is currently appropriated. $65,000 of it will be part of the 2023 budget, if so adopted by the board.
Any further questions?
It was already approved. This amount's already included in our budget. We're not making any budget adjustments because it was already included.
The 35,000, yes.
Yeah.
Well, but the whole amount was included in our annual budget.
Yes, he's already received the previous amount. The 35 is what's left in 2022.
Okay.
Okay, any further questions? Well, this completes the action items that will be addressed next Tuesday evening, August 2nd at 6 p.m. here at City Hall. Until then, we are adjourned. Thank you all.